So where to begin? Yesterday I posted my hot mess video 98. This will be video 99. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to talk about yesterday, and then I felt like, okay, when I turned onto the road that connects the main roads that my brother lives off of and that we live off of, I kind of had this thought of, if I see some kind of synchronicity, then I would come over to the school and do a video rather than go home. But I was really wanting to go home. And then I pull up to the stop sign, and there was 4144 on the odometer. So of course 444. And then the 41, there was also 41 on the clock and a 41 on the temperature. So it's I guess I'll go. And then I saw 555 and 3 different combinations between the trip mileage and the odometer on the way over here. So it's well, I guess I'm supposed to be doing it, and wasn't really sure about all that. Anyway, by the time I got home, watched it, got it posted, I was clicking around on YouTube and saw that I was up to 15 subscribers. And there was that moment of, that's too fast, or 2 in a short span of time again. So it's so there's a little bit of anxiety again. My 13 months and I'm up to 15 subscribers. There is a reason this process is going so slow for me, because I would literally self-destruct. And I've had a nice long history of having that tendency to just completely shut down and go within myself and get lost in the oblivion and not move forward. So that's kind of why I'm being eased into this whole journey. Like the girl in the dream said, got to start sharing the story you already have to share, and the more of your mission will be revealed. That's and it is fitting, and more I'm starting to make some connections with that whole thing. So I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, even if it's sometimes terrifying. But when I was clicking through stuff, well, actually I think I moved on to my cards, but then my phone alerted me that I had a message, and it said new YouTube comment. I was okay, so I clicked on it, and it was somebody that never commented before. And when I first read the message, because I have had one person or 2 people that have commented before. So there was somebody new. And when I first read their comment, my initial reaction was, I got really, really anxious again, and had that immediate sense of feeling like I was somehow betraying my family because of what I've been mouthing off about on here. And that was a whole ordeal. So I had some feelings and I had to work through those last night. But what I realized was I got really, really wound up, and 333 as I'm talking about this, I got really, really wound up, and I realized that what I was so upset about was the fact that, ultimately my family is the reason I've gotten to this point anymore where I literally don't care, because it is completely contrary to everything I am to not care about something. So to have gotten to this point in my life, there's a lot that's fed into it and made me this way. So yeah, I cried a lot. I've been doing that so much these days. I just don't even know anymore. Whatever, it is what it is. But it's just that sense of having cared so much for my entire life, and it was never reciprocated. So now that something else is going on that I should care about, I can't, and I just am ready for it to be over with and fucking just done, and here we are. But on that note, of course, the subject at hand being the ongoing perpetual obsession of my grandfather with his death, and how, I've been hearing since I was 8, and I say 8 because his dad died when I was 7, and then that was the reason he and my grandma moved back, largely. So I moved back to Indiana, and my birthday, my 8th birthday, became all about his death. Every birthday, every holiday, every family get together for any purpose whatsoever became an opportunity for that man to obsess over his death. And never at any point, like the 16, 17, however many years of different types of cancer that he's had, there were remission times. Never once was he ever grateful to have another day. Never once was he grateful for something working out well in his favor. It was always just the preoccupation with his death. And it's like, get it over with. If you're so obsessed with it, just do it. Get it over with. And obviously that is where this becomes an issue, is because I feel that way about somebody. And it's like, because literally 33 years of my life have been spent listening to this man obsess over his death, where he never once gave a shit about any of his grandkids to get to know any of us. It was just a chance to talk about his death. And sure, we were there, whatever, but I think the younger 4 probably have better memories than, not all of them. At least some of them probably have some better memories of him than I do. But the past, God, I don't know, are we at 11 now? Probably 11 weeks since started it was in August. He was not using the cane. He had been told explicitly several times, use the cane in the house. But he didn't do it. He did, however, trip over the cane when he was walking past it and trying to take some trash or something out, I think. Tripped over the cane, fell over the chairs, broke his femur, shattered it, and he's been back home for once for 3 days. And he should not have been there. That was the insurance stopped paying it, so they had no other option. And he went home, and then, he went home on Saturday or Sunday, and then by Wednesday he was back in the hospital. And yesterday he got released to go to the rehab. So it was last night, and it's one of those things where the staff push for, if somebody's going or appears to be heading to the rehab, they push them out. And where, the rehab type facilities would be the same way. If somebody appears to be getting ready to go to the hospital, push them out because it's a freaking holiday. And you don't want to deal with that drama. So they sent him home, or sent him to the rehab yesterday. So this morning, my mom and her sisters went to all the trouble to make the food, because we were going to have the sunroom at the rehab facility for 3 hours to have a Thanksgiving dinner. And so my grandfather could be there. And apparently this morning there was some sort of ordeal where he was apparently my one cousin said he was like he was on Sunday when he got sent to the hospital. So he was in that shape again. And apparently he's been flipping his oxygen off. I was told that he had pulled it off so he could get up and walk to the bathroom yesterday or something. He was just wound up and wouldn't sit still, kind of a thing. Kind of a little bit out of his head, but whatever. but kept taking the oxygen off. So that's probably largely the problem, right? So we get over to the nursing home, and it's this whole freaking ordeal, right? So, okay, we're supposed to be there at noon. I think my mom's youngest sister and her family got there probably the closest to that time, and they were already having issues with my grandfather and his oxygen levels, whatever. And, you know, they had their stuff in the sunroom, and then my aunt was back with my grandfather. My mom was still cooking when my grandma called and was freaking out because she hadn't been picked up yet. Granted, it was like 5 till noon, and it ended up where we took 2 vehicles because I took the food and stopped and got my grandmother to go to the rehab place, which Grandma said she realized she probably should have slept longer since she got up like 5:30 to peel potatoes for this thing at noon, right? It's like, why would you get up that early anyway? But she's kind of been out of her head for a while anyway. But she was all kind of upset that she hadn't been picked up yet, which makes sense because we're supposed to be there at noon for this thing, right? And yeah, well, so first off, last night she was all upset because I hadn't put the water outside like she had wanted me to. But the problem with that whole ordeal was because when she kept telling me repeatedly she wanted me to put the water, like the bottles of water, outside on her porch so they would be cool and, you know, be cold for taking over there to drink. So when my mom and my aunt got in the way and sent her home with me, between the two of us, we both forgot. So it didn't happen. And then she called my mom and was all wound up, and partly about that, and I don't know what else last night. But then this morning she was apparently ready since 9:30 and hadn't been picked up, and it was a problem. And of course it's like my problem. So fuck. So I went and got her, and she's already out on the front porch because my mom told her I was going to go to the bathroom, get my shoes on, then I'd be over there. And so I did those things, and then she's standing on the porch, and I had stuff to take in the house, but she'd already locked the door, so I had to go into the garage to put the stuff there. I mean, I just opened the front door and was like, get in the car, I will get the stuff that you have to take. Let me just throw this in the house first. So I went and did that, and she got in the car, and we didn't talk hardly at all on the way over there until she finally said something about dreading the whole thing. And, you know, there wasn't a whole lot, but I don't even remember how the little bit that went, you know, did go. But we get over there, and she has my grandfather's cane as well as her cane, and she says, what was it she said? Oh, she said to use the wheelchair to carry stuff in. She had 2 canes, she'd be all right. It's like, that makes sense this time around, so I'm going to let that slide. We'll do that route just because there's so much to carry, and I'll be making 100 trips otherwise. So we did that. I loaded up the wheelchair, and we went in, and then I went back out there and got another round of stuff. When we went in the first time, you know, my uncle and my cousin were there and told her that apparently he wasn't doing great. And, you know, my cousin said, seems like he's doing like he was on Sunday or whatever. And she was like, oh, great. So she went back there to his room. And I just brought the stuff in to the room we were supposed to be meeting in. Before my parents got there, and my other aunt and uncle barely got there, they ended up calling an ambulance for him. I agree. Ziva side. So, yeah, so they were taking him to the hospital. Most of us didn't see him unless we went back there, but I didn't. I know my dad didn't. My uncle, or not that uncle, but the other uncle, I don't know that he did. He might have popped in briefly. But I just kind of like, whatever, and I texting my brother, and he's not responding, but I'm at least keeping him updated with what's going on. And yeah, so we go do that. Oh yeah, so the staff was like, well, you guys might as well eat before you go, because it's gonna be a while before he's seen once he's over there, or before like they really know what's going on. They got to get him admitted and all that stuff, whatever they were doing. I don't know. But my mom and her sisters went over, since we had 2 cars, my mom took her car and went over, which that was the car that I drove my grandma in. The thing that was kind of weird, that kind of really annoyed me though, was my mom made a point to call me over to ask me for the key to the car, because she was going to be taking it to the hospital. It's like, I felt like the purpose of her calling me over for this whole thing was just to let me know that she was taking the car, which I already knew that she was taking the car. As soon as that became the thing that was getting ready to happen with him going to the hospital, it makes sense, and it was like, okay. And my dad was standing over there. He's like, don't you have a key to that car? And she's like, oh, I think so. It's like, so why do you need the other key too? But I kind of felt like it was just trying to get me to react in some kind of way. Like she was trying to get me involved, and I'm supposed to care more, and I just don't. I'm done. And yeah. So yeah, so my dad, both my uncles, 2 of my cousins, me and my grandma all ate some food, and then we were just kind of sitting there like a bunch of vegetables. And my grandma was like, well, we might as well get it cleaned up and go on over there or whatever. And it's like, whatever. And I don't know how all that was working. There's a lot of food that didn't get eaten, obviously. And since it was as chaotic as it was, at least it's cold, so whatever did end up over at the hospital, because I know my dad was going over there first to take my grandma. I don't know if he's come back yet with all the stuff. But, yeah. He was at least going over there for a time. But, like, it's 38 degrees right now, so it's not like it's going to be a problem leaving it in the car, or leaving it in the back of the truck. It's just, I don't know, annoying, frustrating the whole day. And, like, as soon as they said, somebody came back and said they were calling an ambulance, it's just like, fuck, here we go again. And I got my one cousin that has watched all my videos that knows how I feel on things, and she's just kind of looking at me every now and then. And it's like, I'm not going along with the rest of the family and the drama, and you're supposed to react a certain way, and everything's a crisis, blah, blah, blah. But my dad had parked a little further away than I had when I got my grandma there, because luckily there was a spot close enough that she could walk in without a big problem. But they had a little bit more of a walk, so and it was fine. But like, it just, when I was taking stuff back to the car in the wheelchair again, well, to the truck, yeah, that was the whole thing. So I took the second load out, and my brother called, and So I was coming back with the wheelchair for my grandma. But since my brother called, I like backed it up toward the front of the truck and just sat in it and was talking on the phone for a while. My other uncle went to leave and was like, that's a good look. It's like, yep, here I am. But he was wanting to know what was going on and kind of, oh, fuck, Mom and her drama. She keeps sending me messages, and it goes to both me and my dad. Sarah, can you get me that? And I don't know what it was. It's gonna be some kind of list of something, I'm sure. Whatever, I don't know. But I'm not home. I'm not dealing with it right this second. So, yeah. Yeah, she just keeps trying to pull me back in. It's like, no. And my brother, that's what it was. He wanted to know how everything was going on that end. And it's like, still not reacting like Mom thinks I should. So, obviously, that's the whole thing. And my dad had made a comment to the uncle that lives next door to us that my brother and his group would probably get there a couple hours late as per the norm. It's like, well, I mean, there's a whole lot of drama in this family if you're there the whole time. And if you already know they think a certain way about you anyway, then what's the point of going around to be in the middle of it all the time? So screw that. So they actually were right about 2 hours late. Didn't get to eat anything. We were all packed up. Some of my family had already left at that point. And they both checked in with my grandma. And that was whatever. But anyway, when I was talking to him on the phone, my brother's asking me a little questions. He's like, okay, so if they're around, you can answer like yes or no. And it's like, oh, they're not around. It's like, I'm outside sitting in the wheelchair. We're all right. It's like, I'm by the truck. So he was asking how it was all going, and it's like, so Mom and her sisters are over at the hospital, and we're all like leaving, and there's 2222 as I'm talking about that. But yeah, so I gave him the little rundown of what was going on, and he's like, well, how are you? And it's like, wishing it was freaking over already. I was like, just do it if you're gonna do it. Otherwise, quit pissing around with it. This is ridiculous. And they get what I'm talking about, especially because, my brother, he's 2.5 years older than me, so he's very aware that everything I've said about it and how it's always been about this man's death, he knows it's completely true. So yeah, they talked a lot about understanding that feeling, with her mom and all that stuff too. So there's just a whole thing. One thing I did not mention was the other day. Okay, I told the story the other day because it was kind of like we were at the hospital, we were in the little conference room area, or like the waiting room, whatever. It's set up like a conference room, but it is the waiting room, so whatever. So there's my mom, my grandma, my aunt and uncle, me, and my dad. And my dad saw somebody that looked familiar walking over to the elevator. And he asked him if he was related to this guy that he knew and used to work with, and started a conversation with those two. And the reason I told the story the other day was, as the guy started to leave, my dad asked what his name was, and he told him, and it's like twin flame name. So it's like, there again, it is popping up in my life. But one of the things this guy said was that his brother that my dad was asking about had passed away last year, the day after Thanksgiving. It's like, that seems a little ominous or like foreboding. So it's like, it just felt like it could be a thing. I don't know. My mom sent a message to me and my dad earlier and said he's still with us. And I was just kind of like, tell me when he's not, okay? Otherwise, let's just stop pissing around about it. I literally care about nothing. Tell me when it's over. So, yeah. And again, I hate that they have got me to this point, but this is the fucking point I'm at. And it is what it is. I just can't care about it anymore. And like I said back in August, I kind of, had the little conversation with him, energetically speaking, said, I will not mourn your death any longer. I've spent 33 years of my life doing it, and I will not anymore. So it's like every single time my mom and her sisters pour all this energy into hoping that he rallies around and all this stuff, it's like, and then he comes back or whatever, it's like, this isn't living. This is just not dying. And not very well, because that's still going to happen, but it's not enjoying anything, and he's made lots of comments about this is no way to live. It's like, you haven't been living. Like, your entire life has been pissed away on dreading dying, so you haven't lived anyway. Other fucking thing that annoyed me yesterday. Okay, when I decided to go home, or to come here and do a video rather than going home and not, what happened was when I got home, my dad was taking the trash out because, Thursday is our trash day. So he was taking the trash out, and so he happened to be outside when I pulled in. And I don't remember what he said when I got there, but I said something about it, kind of did like a little stutter thing when I was pulling in. And he's like, oh, man. He goes, here, let me have your keys and I'll check it and all this stuff. So he finally checks the damn car, right? Now, keeping in mind, I know nothing about cars. Otherwise, I would have checked it myself. But I feel like there are people that like cars and know about them enough that if I don't like them, that's perfectly okay, and I can find the ones that like them enough to solve the problems. In this case, we weren't to that point yet, but just since I keep saying to my father that there's been some kind of an issue going on, yesterday was the first time, and it was literally only because he was taking the trash out when I got back home. So I think that was part of the motivation for me coming over here to do the video, was just so he was already outside, so him forgetting wouldn't be the excuse. So it took him like 2 minutes to figure out this thing had absolutely no transmission fluid in it. It's like, how long can you drive on that before that blows the whole damn thing up? But we just have to piss around with it for so long before we can actually look into it and see whether there's something that needs to be addressed immediately, or if we can just lose the whole vehicle altogether. So, so I'm just fucked again, because this is, my dogs aren't allowed in they could go in the other cars. They've been in they haven't been in the truck yet. It's too new. My dad's dogs go in there a lot. It's not that they're not allowed in the truck. It's just that the seats in both the other vehicles are leather, so they don't want their toenails screwing up the leather, which I get that. Plus, they're kind of grimy at times, so I wouldn't really want to put them in the nicer vehicles anyway. Especially with Taz and his tendency to lick the seats. But yeah, it was something that literally it took less than 2 minutes for him to say, oh, there's no transmission fluid in this. And so he goes and gets some transmission fluid and fills it up, and hey, it's not acting up today. Go fucking figure. We could have just solved the problem that quick, but no, we had to just drag our feet and not think it's any kind of issue because it's me saying it or something, or because it's not convenient. He's retired. It's not like he's doing anything else right now other than consuming all sorts of YouTube content and fucking Trump bullshit. So, yeah. All that just so easily resolved, but no, we can't. Nah. Like I said, I am at the point I am ready to be done with probably most, if not all of them. Yeah, most, because, I mean, I like my cousins and my brother. I like my aunts pretty good, but I also get that, you know, they're still product of their upbringing as well. And, yeah. My uncle was coming back home to drop some stuff that they took, some of the food off that they took over there first. And he was like, "You want to ride?" Like, yep. I'm not going back over there. I'm done. Fucking done. Yeah, I reread that comment today. My cousin asked me what it was, and I sent it to her, and when I reread it, it's like, that hit me a completely different way last night than it did today. And like today, it was like really nice and relatable, and last night, like, I just had this overwhelming sense of, you know, feeling like I was betraying my family because I'm doing this thing where I'm talking about them a whole lot, and they're not gonna like it at all. But I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now, because it just keeps all lining up. And yeah, I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. God, and there was a tarot reading that popped up earlier today. I think the guy posted it today. Cosmic Kin. The card that I selected, I went to it kind of because, like, I know that part of that message, I have that deck and it has come out for me a lot. Part of the message talks about consider yourself to be divinely planted, and wherever you are is where you're most needed right now. And that was I picked that pile. He was talking about all this stuff that, okay, first off, he mentioned that, you know, in the guidebook, when he read a little blurb about it, talked about Michael and Faith as twin flames. He said, so maybe there's some twin flame energy that's relevant, and something about the sun and the moon. He was feeling that really strongly, and Leos seemed to be important. He kept mentioning the sign of Leo, and he said there's something about dogs barking. I was like, yo. And I don't remember most of the message. I'm gonna like go back and rewatch it later and kind of take notes on like my little twin flame journal thing, because there was so much that he was saying that was like, oh, that's completely on point with everything I'm thinking and feeling at this point in time. But he was talking about all that stuff, and then he makes the comments about there's something about dogs barking. I was like, dude, it's like, most of the videos I've done have included my dogs in the car, and frequently, luckily not as much now that they're used to me doing this, but when we were first starting out with it, they were really inclined to bark at like everything that moved outside. And that'll probably confuse them because they just turn the car off. But like they would be like hyper on the alert, and if they heard anybody or saw anybody, 3333 as yeah, talking, you know, they'd start barking. And like if I don't see it before they do and tell them to leave it, if I say leave it first, then they're usually pretty good about not getting wound up with it. But if I don't and they catch it first, then they get all wound up and gotta let me know over and over again. In the backyard, it's a whole nother story. I don't know. Just there's, with the construction near our house and like that road's pretty busy, is probably not an ideal place to do videos. However, it is a possibility if I don't want to go anywhere. But yeah. But he was talking about dogs barking, and like the other day I did a video where I was apologizing because they kept barking, and then like I finally had to pause it and went inside to finish up the video just to get them to quit it. So yeah, it's like that's a whole thing, you know. And then I've talked about that whole confident, the twin flame is a Leo, and I think as much as anything, that also goes back to my Venus placement being a Leo, and I think it's because it's directly connected to the twin flame. And I'm pretty confident that his Venus sign will be Cancer, because I mean, I got all sorts of Cancer in my chart, so that's the whole thing. But then, of course, Leo is ruled by the sun and Cancer is ruled by the moon, and I got a whole lot of Cancer placements, so yeah, that's but like all along this process there are like different points where I start thinking about something, and like, it just kept repeating there for a while. He's the sun, I am the moon, and and then that's like, it takes me down other little avenues of thought, and I make other connections, so it's been kind of a whole thing. But yeah, just everything he was talking about was like so on point. And it's like, okay, I'm feeling it. Totally feeling it. That said, luckily, okay, I have discovered, first off, I thought about cutting all my hair off. It still might happen. It's so processed and damaged and whatnot that it might happen. But I'm still trying to grow it out. But apparently if I move the part to the other side, that's where like there's a lot more breakage and stuff. So then I end up looking like I have a fucking mullet yesterday. And the little micro bangs, but they're gone this way, but I have like these 10-foot long ones. So it's like, I don't know what's happening. But debating on possibly cutting my hair off. We'll see. It's kind of funny because I was thinking about that too. The lady that I was taking to her appointments, and frequently to her hair appointments, where she'd get her bangs cut or whatever. It was this place that it's local that I've never been to, never heard of it. But I was taking her there, and I've gotten this real strong inclination here lately that I need to set up an appointment with her specifically, like rather than the one that I have been going to, who's connected to like everybody in my family. She's like she did my cousin's wedding party's hair for her wedding. My cousin who won't make the 45-minute drive down here to visit family except on certain occasions, but will drive the 45 minutes for her haircuts. Yeah. I just now made that connection too. Mom and her stupid messages again. But anyway, like, she's a good friend of my cousin. My aunt and uncle, I think, both go get their hair done there. My grandma goes there. My mom goes there. I've been going there, and I just really feel like I like the girl, but I feel like I need to start going to this other lady instead. So I think I'm gonna do that at some point, at least get it trimmed up. I gotta do that. Yeah, there's a whole thing today. My brother was talking payment for dealing with their dogs, and that was a whole thing. Like, the amount he originally threw out, it's like, dude, that's $20 more than you were paying me for like the whole weekend before. And this is like 3 more days. He's like, oh. So he told his wife, and she said, well, $20 isn't enough for 3 days. It's like, thank you. But still, it's like when it came up initially, there was that whole wash of anxiety, and because I really hate trying to come up with a dollar amount for something that I'm helping somebody with. It's like, it makes sense to get paid for what I'm doing, and I don't want to not get paid for it, especially when I got to take my dog to the vet next week. But yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I hated doing it, but I think part of the thing that's coming up specifically with my brother is I will tell him, even if I hate talking to him about, no, that's not enough, I will say that with him, because I know he's not going to like have a complete and total meltdown. Whereas like, if it was like my parents or something, they'd probably look at me like, well, that's ridiculous. We're family. You're supposed to like help us out and blah, blah, blah. which has been a whole nother thing. Okay, I have talked about trying to sell some shit just so I can make a little bit of money and be able to take my dogs to their vet appointments and whatnot, and, well, now we got freaking Christmas coming up, and granted, there's only like 3 gifts I gotta get, but still gotta get them. But I have this Foot Locker. That was what started it. That I've had this thing. I got it when I was going to undergrad. And, we got it because it had a thing on it to put a little padlock on. It's like, hey, that's pretty cool. So I get that. So I've had this thing. And most recently, it's been kind of like a junk drawer and was just catching whatever didn't get put somewhere else. I had a bunch of like weird electronic shit that I just threw in a box that's in the garage waiting to go to the electronics recycling place. But when I emptied out the Foot Locker, I was like, hey, I should sell this. I can get some money out of that. That's a pretty nice thing. And as soon as I mentioned it to my mom, she was like, well, if you don't want it, I'll take it. Should that be really good for, I think, putting clothes or something? And it was just kind of like, it went from something that I was going to get money out of to now something that honestly is behind a chair collecting dust because we haven't had time to do anything with it now. So I'm kind of inclined to take it back, because if I can't sell it without it being a problem, then I could at least use it for my stuff again. And I don't know. It's like every single time I come up with something that she thinks or has any kind of strong feelings about, she's going to make me feel guilty about trying to sell it. Or then it becomes a thing where I'm just supposed to give it to her. And it's like, I don't have a whole lot of income right now. And I understand that they probably are more than a little pissed off because I quit my job that I had, or the factory job last year that paid really well, because I felt like the universe was telling me it was time to exit that. Which started because I had that night where I decided to commit my love life and career lives over to the universe to direct and see what happened, kind of a thing. One of the first things that happened was, it took a couple months, but I got to a point where I felt really strongly like I was not supposed to be there. And like I've talked about, the dead hawk that came up because I was dragging my feet about committing to it with the temp agency, having that conversation with them, telling them I wasn't going to be there anymore. And then my aunt tells me there's this dead hawk across the road, or in the road across from her house. And when we went to bury it, I looked it up. I looked up the meaning of the symbolism of a dead hawk, and it said, like, one of the first things that popped up was this thing that said, you're not trusting yourself. It's like, there we go. So clearly, what I know I'm supposed to do, I need to just do. And it's been a whole process trying to navigate everything in the past year. And it's been really hard because I know I'm learning to trust the universe, because literally every time I've really had something I needed to do, something has come up where I've had what I needed at the time. But it's about learning to trust that it's going to be there and be grateful for the fact that it's going to be there. But it always comes together. It's just not ahead of time, because I gotta stress before I gotta stress a little bit, because my whole life has been my family and the lack consciousness, and like, that's all. Like, if all you see is lack, all you're gonna get is lack, because as with the not living thing that my grandpa spent his entire life doing, what you're putting out there, the universe sees as that's what you want more of, so that's what you're gonna get more of. And yeah, so there's that. But it's about learning to trust. It's about disconnecting this whole family thing, and you know, it's really frustrating for me because it's like I feel like right at this point, obviously, you know, like the car situation, it's not mine anyway, but you know, whatever. I am allowed to use it, but when I have $2.18 in my bank account, that's not going to pay anybody to look at it to see what the problem is. But since my dad used to work on cars, he should theoretically be able to, you know, figure out the 2-minute problem of, oh, there's no transmission fluid, and we could have blown the whole car up, but nah, why should we check it? Why should we check it when it's a little problem when we could make it a big problem? Yeah. It's pretty much how it feels with my family all the time. You know, I don't know. It's nice that my brother is totally on board with everything I'm talking about, and he gets it completely. Because, you know, at least we have each other. You know, and my mom's friend, her best friend that she used to babysit for, her daughter, the friend's daughter, is 6 months older than me, and she was a grade ahead of me. But we were always around each other, right? So her mom sent me a message earlier and said she was scared because she saw something about whatever my mom had sent to her. She saw my mom's message. I was like, well, I really have no idea what's going on. It's like, I said, my mom would be thrilled that you were scared. Basically, I emphasized that my mom would be thrilled about that point. It's like, because she's pissed at me and my brother because we're not responding as she thinks we're supposed to, and she wants us to, and so she's mad that we're not going along with it. It's like, this is why I'm here right now trying to disconnect all this bullshit, because you got to go through and see all the bullshit that needs to be disconnected to get disconnected from it. So I was never brought up to be my own person, to know jack shit about myself. I wasn't supposed to have my own life, you know, so my whole purpose in existing was to perpetuate their cycles, basically, because according to their logic. Of course, they wouldn't say that. My mom's enjoyed very much the times where she's gotten to live vicariously through me, but yeah, that's about... So we're breaking those cycles, and we're disconnecting all the things that need to be disconnected, and it's not going to be pretty. But yeah, I really... She said something the other day, I think to my aunt or someone, about when I'm taking care of her, and it's just like, I said, I don't remember what she came up with, but I was just like, you better freaking behave or I'm just going to put your ass in a home. It's like, I'm not going to cater to you like you think I should. That's not what this is. I'm not just going to perpetuate this thing that you created a monster. You allowed it to be a monster. You allowed the monster to affect your kids, and you didn't do anything about it. You acted like, you know, your kids were just supposed to go along with the building of the monster. So, no, you don't get to decide how I'm going to spend the rest of my life. That's definitely not the case. And yeah, I'd say that nursing home is going to be a pretty good option if you can't figure out how to live your own life anyway. But she's like, what is she? She'll be 64 next week. It's like, why are you already planning this kind of shit? Because her dad did. Because that's all she's known, and she didn't change anything, so that's all she's going to do. But me, nah, done. Nope. So yeah. Anyway, my brother said something about skating, and I don't know if I think it might have been an invite to ice skating, but I won't swear to that until I go check it. And then I might just blow off my mom's messages, quite frankly, and go just hang out with my brother and sister-in-law instead. But yeah, I guess I'll call this done for the day. video 99, I'm gonna have this 100 in before the end of November. So there's that. Yeah. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.